Hey creeps, it's Cameron again, and welcome back to my channel where I talk about books, movies, writing, and all things spooky. I am here to haul even more vintage horror paperbacks. All of these were purchased from this bookstore really close to my town. They're actually more of a comic book store, and they sell like D&D board games and things like that. But they do have a basement full of books, and they're wanting to get rid of everything. So the books, I mean. So they sold all these books to me for $1 a piece, which is amazing. So I cleared them out of horror. I don't think they have anything left, but they do have a lot of cool science fiction and fantasy pulp paperbacks that I might go back for at some point. But anyway, I did purchase these all for $1 a piece, so I got some pretty good deals. The first one here is Poltergeist the Legacy, which is based off of the 90s TV show, which doesn't really have anything to do with Poltergeist the movie. But this one is called Malstrom, and it is by Matthew Costello, who's written a lot of horror paperbacks, so pick that one up. I also got The Sharing, a novel of sexual terror, which is by M.M. Faraday. And here we have Transformation by Edmund Plant, which is a leisure title. Very, very cool cover. Caliban and Other Tales by Robert D. Vero, I think. This is a newer leisure title. And here we have The Unholy Smile by Gregory A. Douglas, who also wrote The Nest, which I read a couple of months ago and loved it. So I definitely need to read more of his work. Next we have Pan, which is by J. Bernie Dibble. And this cover with the dude wrapped in gauze would definitely appeal to my friend Leon of Paperback Mania. I'm sure he would like that cover a lot if he doesn't already have this. Next we have a book in the Night Vision series. This one is called Hard Shell. It has stories by Dean Koontz, Robert R. McCammon, and Edward Bryant, with an introduction by Clive Barker. And I'm pretty sure Clive Barker edited this one. Next is Dark Satanic, which is by Marion Zimmer Bradley. This is a Tor book. Another Tor title is Bone Man by Lisa W. Cantrell. Next we have a first edition, first printing of Coma. This is by Robin Cook, and it is in perfect condition. I was just so happy to find this for so cheap. I've never really been that interested in Robin Cook's books, but this one is his most famous, so I'll give this one a try. Next we have The Hampton Sisters, which is a Dell book. It is written by Bernard F. Connors, and as you can see, there's a cool cover inlay there. Brass by Robert J. Conley, another newer leisure title. The Fire Cloud, which is by Kenneth McKinney, who wrote The Moonchild. It's probably his most popular. He also wrote The Plants. This one is, actually I don't even think this is a horror novel. This is about a volcanic eruption, so I guess it's more science fiction adventure. But it's one of his books for $1, and it's in great shape, so I couldn't pass it up. Published by Avon Books, here we have Grail by Philip Michaels. Save the Last Dance for Me by Judy Miller. I love that step back cover art. That is so cool. The Rejuvenators by Hugh Miller. Some really cool step back art right there. Next is The Soul of Anna Klein. This is by Terrell Medaner. I don't know, but it looks pretty cool. A Clutch of Vampires by Raymond T. McNeely. Now, I don't really know exactly what this is. There's an advertisement here on the front that says In Search of Dracula, so it's advertising another book on the cover of this book. I always find that funny. But this is, I believe, it has vampire stories. So there's some fiction in here, but there are also like chapters about vampires throughout history and like real cases of vampirism. So I don't know, this is kind of a weird hybrid of a book. So there is A Clutch of Vampires. What About the Baby? This is by Claire McNeely. It's an Onyx title. Here we have The Anointing by Martha Maybe. I don't know what that pose is all about. I guess this means power. Another Onyx book is Night Prophets by Paul F. Olson. That cover is so cool. I saw that and I was like, mine. Book of Shadows by Mark Olden. Oh, tea time. Here I have 4 leisure books by Sarah Pinborough. This one is called Breeding Ground. And then we have Feeding Ground, which I believe is a sequel. Sounds like one. The Taken, and then Tower Hill. The Deceased by Tom Piccirilli, another leisure book. Scars and Other Distinguishing Marks by Richard Christian Matheson. This is a tour anthology. Private Demons by Robert Masello. What is happening outside? Is that a storm? Oh my god. I don't know if I just got hit by a tornado or not, but that was bad. Like, it was filming and all of a sudden it sounded like the whole house was coming down. Everything's fine, but I think the canopy on my back deck has been ruined. I'll worry about it later. Alright, going on with the haul. Here we have Blood Sisters by Mark Manley. Satan's Master by Joe Nazel. And this one was published by Holloway House. And my friend, who's kind of an expert on these books, said that this is extremely rare. I hadn't even heard about it before. I just saw it in the bookstore. I was like, oh, I'll pick it up. Oh, great, the lights are flickering. Anyway, he said that this was a really rare book. So I'm glad I picked it up. Next we have Nightmare. This is by Gloria Murphy. Not in good shape, but for $1, I thought this would make a good reading copy until I can get a nicer one. God, I'm hearing more sounds. I don't know what that is. I gotta go see. Ah! So many distractions! It's just the rain. It's really raining hard and the wind is crazy. I really hope a tornado is not going to come through here and rip my house apart. Anyway, Offerings. This is by T.M. Mitten. This is another leisure book. Next is Phantasma by Thomas F. Mantaloni, I believe. This is Tor. Very popular cover right there, so I'm glad I can add this to my collection. Here we have a couple of books by James A. Moore. So we have the first book, Possessions, and then the second book, Rapid Growth. The God Children by Sharon Pape. Save Joanna, a novel of exorcism and possession by Francine Pascal. Very cool cover. More light flickering. This one is actually non-fiction. It is called Story into Film. 3 tales of the supernatural go from page to screen. Featuring complete stories and scripts of the occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, the Mask of the Red Death, and the Signalman. There are lots of photos inside and comparisons to the story and the movies, so I'll have to hunt down those movies. I mean, of course I've heard of Mask of the Red Death, but I don't think I've seen a movie adaptation of that. I've just read the Poe story. Here is Lullaby. This is by Diane Guest. This is another one with step back artwork. The lights don't stop flickering, I swear to God. The Torching by Macy Heedish. This is a witch book, I believe. Worship the Night by Mary Bigliante. I don't know. I'm just guessing how to pronounce most of these names. This one was published by Tower. I had never heard of this one before, but it looks cool. Some of you are probably thinking, this guy's never going to read all these books. You're probably right, but I would like to read these at some point. And if I never get to them, then so what? They didn't cost very much. It's better than if these were donated to a Goodwill, which is probably what would have happened. So I feel like I'm rescuing them and giving them a home. And I am interested in reading these. Obviously, I wouldn't buy them. There were a couple of books I didn't bring home because I wasn't interested in reading them. So if you're one of those people who want to shame me and call me a book collector as if it's an insult, just don't worry about it. Go do something else. Here we have Like Death. This is by Tim Wagner. And a couple more Tim Wagner books. This one is called Pandora Drive, which looks awesome. I will read anything that has a carnival on the cover. So this spoke to me, and then also I saw that it takes place in a small town in Ohio. I live in Ohio. My book that's coming out in October, it takes place in a small Ohio town. Yeah, totally my bag right here. And this book by Tim Wagner is called Darkness Wakes. And I've heard a lot about his books, and I've not read any, so I will try out these ones. Next is Emergence by Robert D. Sansucci. I've read a lot of his children's books growing up, but I've not read any of his adult work, so there's that one right there. Blood of the Impaler by Geoffrey Sackett. I have a couple of his books, so I'm excited to add this one to the collection. Another leisure book. This one is called Black Sun. The tagline says, "The seed of evil puts forth deadly roots in hell's endless night." Very dramatic. I like it. This is one of those leisure books that is described as just being occult on the spine. This is called Lily Dale. It's by Paul Tabori, I think. A terrifying novel of supernatural horror and psychic passion. This one is called Mind Spell by K. Nolte Smith. I believe this is about witches. Michelle Remembers. This is a really big one. This one caused quite a stir back in the 80s. It's talked about a whole bunch in Paperbacks from Hell. I've never read it because I've never been able to find a copy. So I'm very happy to find this one. This is a first edition of the paperback. Very cool step back artwork. This one is supposedly based off of a true story of this woman, Michelle, recounting what happened to her as a 5-year-old. Her mom raised her in this satanic cult, and all of this horrible stuff happened to her. And this book was partly responsible for the satanic panic of the 80s. Partly responsible. And there are photographs inside. They're treating it like it's a true crime thing to really hammer in that this is in fact true. This is non-fiction. This will be a fun read. I think the storm finally stopped. I don't hear anything. So, yay, I'm alive. I'm still here. This one's called The Returning, and this was published by Popular Library. Very interesting cover on that one. Demon Summer by Elaine Booth Selig. I already have this. I have a really, really nice copy of this one, but I picked this one up just because I need a reading copy. I don't want to ruin my other copy, and this one's definitely been read a couple of times, so I won't feel bad about reading this copy. Disturb Not the Dream. This is by Paula Thrachman. I think I might have shown this in a haul already, now that I think about it. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. Looks like a haunted house story. The Night School by Michael Payne. The Man Who Would Not Die by Thomas Page. Trauma by P.J. O'Shaughnessy. This next one is a Del Abyss book. I always have to try really hard to say a Del Abyss instead of Adele, because undoubtedly some smartass in the comments would be like, "Oh, you said Adele. She's a singer. Adele wrote a book, what?" This one's called Making Love. This is by Melanie Tem and Nancy Holder. Next is Looker by George Saralagui, I believe. And then another book by the same author is Shadow Stalker. The Eyes of the Night by David C. Smith. Gabriel's Body. This is more of a medical thriller. It's published by Leisure. Holy Secrets by Seymour Shubin. It says, a novel of mind-shattering terror. In the hushed halls of the psychiatric ward, doctors sworn to save her are driving her insane. Here is a John Shirley book. This one's called Black Butterflies. I have a couple of John Shirley books. He's pretty well known. This one I actually owned when I was a kid. I got this at the dollar store because they carried a lot of these leisure books from the early 2000s. So I bought this one at the dollar store when I was 8 years old. And I opened it up to start reading it, and the F-bomb is on the first page 5 times, and I remember thinking, oh, it's the F word. So I put it away, and I was worried my mom would see it, and then I wound up giving it to my older sister. I was like, I think there's a lot of swear words in it, and she opened it to the first page. She was like, oh yeah, there is. So there went my copy of Black Butterflies, but I'm happy to have a new copy of this one. Here we have Satan Whispers by Clarissa Moss. This is another one of those leisure occult books. The Burning Ground by Medina Spray Nolan. I don't know what this is about, but I see women and fire. So I imagine this is going to be about witchcraft, which I'm here for. Brother and Sister by Mcneely. That cover kind of creeps me out, not gonna lie. Witch Hunt by David O. Brannagan. Doll's Eyes by Barry Wood. He is the author of Twins, and he also wrote The Tribe, which I think he's most famous for. James Patterson says that this book is scary as Halloween night in a cemetery. I am not very partial to James Patterson, but I like that blurb. So, The Watch Gods by Barbara Wood. I love a good mummy book, and I'm hoping that's what this is. It looks very Egyptian. It talks about curses, a bunch of scientists coming to Egypt to explore. Yes, I'll read it. A Sweet Familiarity by Doma Winston. A spine-tingling novel of an occult vengeance and reincarnation. This one is another Del Abyss book. It's called The Language of Fear by Del James. He's also a songwriter. He's written some songs for Guns N' Roses. The Void by Terry Jacobs. These are a couple of newer Stephen Grisham books. I have a whole bunch of his older books, but I actually did not know that he wrote into the late 90s, early 2000s. So here we have In the Blood and Haunted Ground. These are both newer Pinnacle books. Next we have Near Death by Nancy Kilpatrick. And obviously, I bought this because it has the best cover art of all time. Like, if this entered a contest for best cover ever, this would win. Because it's just that good. Actually, it's horrible. I don't know why I bought this. The Spell, which is by Ed Callagher and Harriet Vidal. I have a couple of this author duo's books, and I just found out that Ed Callagher was actually associated in the movie business. He wrote quite a few screenplays, including the screenplay for Invasion of the Blood Farmers, which is this old drive-in, gritty, gross movie that I saw recently and loved it. And I saw his name in the special features while watching, and it sounded very familiar, and I found out, hey, he wrote a few books. So this was one of his books that he co-wrote with Harriet Vidal. And then we have Visions of Terror by William Katz. Without Mercy by Leonard Jordan. One of those zebra books that have a knife sticking through fruit, because that was a thing. And then we have The Shelter. I believe this is about a city that is under the control of some kind of evil, and it's controlling their minds and making them do terrible things. Everybody's just going crazy. This sounds really cool. I haven't seen any reviews on this one, so if you've read it, please let me know if it's any good. This one's called Nella by John Godfrey. A couple of John Everson books. We have Siren and The 13th. Dweller by Jeff Strand. Jeff Strand is awesome. I've read a lot of his short stories that have popped up in anthologies, but I've yet to read any of his actual books. So I've heard some good things about this one, and he also has a ton of other books out there. This guy writes so much, and he is hilarious, and he just following him on social media, he constantly posts the most funny things I've ever seen. So I'm excited to check out more of his work. The Visitation by Elna Stone. I believe this is about aliens. Moonlight Variations by Florence Stevenson. I believe this is about vampires. Just a lucky guess. The Demon Circle by Dan Schmidt. The Dracula Tape by Fred Saberhagen. I have quite a few of the books in this series, but I didn't have the first book yet, so I'm glad I found that. Published by a popular library, we have The Tender Seed by Harry Wrinkle. The Adversary by Mark Rise and Barry William. Maynard's House by Herman Roscher. I've heard a lot about this book. Some houses hide you from the terrors of the night. Some houses invite them in. Shadows by Kimberly Ringel. This is a leisure book. And then last but not least, we have Pray Serpents Pray by Nicholas Randers. I love the cover art on that. It looks very Lovecraftian. I'm so happy I was able to get all of these for $1 a piece. I wish I could have gone into more depth while going through these, but obviously there's a ton of books here. So there are all of the horror paperbacks, and then I will be back with one more part of this summer book haul, and I'll be showing you the rest of the books that I got. I have a lot of YA horror, I have a lot of middle grade horror, some science fiction and fantasy, and a whole bunch of mystery and children's books. So I will show those in the next one. So until next time, later creeps. Hey creeps, thank you again for visiting my channel and for subscribing. If you would like to see more, I am on Twitter and Instagram at BookMovieGuy. I am also the co-creator of the Library Macabre Books Facebook page. Also, I am a horror author, so if you would like to read any of my work or check out any of the pages that I mentioned, I will leave the links down below in the graveyard. And lastly, I am on Patreon, so I wanted to use this time to extend a very warm thank you to all of these awesome creeps over here. Those are all of my Patreon supporters, and I wanted to say thank you so much, guys, and stay spooky.